Hello students, good day. Let us continue with our lesson, chapter 4, History of Indian Arts. This is the third part, and in the last video I have discussed with you temple architecture and types of temple architecture. Types of temple architecture. In temple architecture, we discuss about the two styles of temple architecture, namely Nagara style and the Dravidian style. Nagara style is the temple architecture of North India, and Dravidian style is the temple architecture of southern part of India. Now, the main difference between the Nagara style of North India and Dravidian style of South India is that the Nagara style, if you look at the picture, you will find that the tower is from the base to the top, the size of the tower goes on becoming less. Okay, so it's more like a spiral. It is like it becomes narrow towards the top. It is broad at the base and narrow towards the top. But when you talk about the Dravidian style, the Gopuras, which are there, the Dravidian style of temple architecture, you will find that the top which is there is more or less flat, and there are some spirals over it. So that's the main difference. Then we also learned that there is a Bhumija style where there's a blend of these two, the Dravidian style and the Nagara style is called as the Vesara style. And another style of architecture, temple architecture, is seen in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, which has close resemblance to the Nagara style, okay, from the structural point of view. Let's continue with the lesson, and today's part, we start with Hematpanthi style of temples. There is a very important question, children, related to the Hematpanthi style of architecture. The temples which were built in Maharashtra during the 12th and the 13th century, they were called as the Hematpanthi temples. I'll be sharing with you some pictures of the Hematpanthi temples. Hematpanthi temples were built in 12th and 13th century, and in Maharashtra they're called Hematpanthi temples. The outer walls of these temples, it is star shaped. Okay, Hematpanthi temples are star shaped, and Hematpanthi temples are star shaped, and the plan of these temples is star shaped. The outer wall of these temples has a zigzag design that results in alternating light and shadow effect. So you'll find that some places there's more light entering in, and there is some places there is a shadow effect. The masonry, what do you exactly mean by masonry? The concrete, cement which is used, and the basic structure, the way it is being built. So the most important characteristic feature is its masonry, as the walls are built without using any mortar, by locking the stones using the technique of tenon and mortise joints. You may find this kind of a locking system now while putting up the new pavements. Okay, in different places you will find that the stones are interlocked using a technique. So this same technique has been used without using any mortar. This particular temple structure architecture has been built that way. Examples of Hematpanthi temple, you have Ambareshwar temple, Ambarnath near Mumbai, the Gondeshwar temple, Sinnar, Nasik, and Aund Nagnath temple, Hingoli. This becomes an important question, match the column, or it can come up for identify the incorrect pair. So Hematpanthi temples are temples built in the 12th and 13th century in Maharashtra. Okay, let us continue. Now let us move over to what is called as Islamic architecture. Another type of architecture that developed during the Middle Ages or medieval period under the patronage or encouragement of Muslim sultanates is called as Islamic architecture. Persian, Central Asian, Arabic and pre-Islamic architectural styles were blended together to create the Islamic architecture. Again, here there is a 4-mark question, children, where you have to mention about Islamic architecture, giving examples, and the 3 main examples of Islamic architecture in India are namely the Qutub Minar at Mehrauli near Delhi, Taj Mahal, Agra, and Gol Gumbaz, Bijapur in Karnataka. Let us move ahead, and let us first talk about the Let's first talk about Qutub Minar. Qutub Minar was built during the reign or the rule of Qutbuddin Aibak, 12th century Common Era. Again, it was completed in the reign of Iltutmish, 13th century. So it took a long time, children, 100, almost a century, you can say, to complete this particular minaret. It is the highest minaret in the world, 73 meters tall, that is 240 feet, and it has been declared as World Heritage Site. So first example of Islamic architecture is Qutub Minar. The second example of Islamic architecture is the Gol Gumbaz, which is built in Bijapur. Built in Bijapur, it is present at Bijapur in Karnataka, built in 17th century. And this grand building has the tomb of Muhammad Adil Shah of Bijapur. In your 4th standard lesson, you would have studied about Muhammad Adil Shah of Bijapur. Adil Shah of Bijapur, Qutub Shahi, Nizam Shahi. These were the sultanates that were prevalent in the Deccan region before the advent of Shivaji. So Muhammad Adil Shah of Bijapur, his tomb is kept in this particular building. Inside the dome, after which the building is named, there is a round gallery. And the unique aspect of this gallery is that even if a slightest whisper or sound is made by a person who is standing, it can be heard all over. So even if someone claps from here, its echo can be heard many times. That is the speciality of this particular structure. In Islamic architecture, what is the most important, the important feature that you can notice is that you will generally find minarets. Another example is Taj Mahal. There are small minarets which are there on the sides, and there is a dome and arches, arch, dome, and many times you find the verses from the Holy Quran inscribed on the walls of this structures, of these structures. So you have another very good example of the Islamic architecture. Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal, another example of Islamic architecture. He built Taj Mahal in memory of his wife Mumtaz Mahal. It's a supreme example of a beautiful Islamic structure, and this structure has been declared as World Heritage Site. So 3 examples of Islamic architecture. The first one, Gol Gumbaz, second one, Qutub Minar, and the third one, Taj Mahal. Let us move ahead, and the next point in this lesson is Indo-Gothic style, another important architectural style which developed during British times. Even if you go to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj terminus now, you will find that the buildings that are there, the buildings station which is itself is built in Indo-Gothic style. Churches which you find in BT, Church Gate, government offices, railway stations, courts, all these offices, all these, even some residences of top officials, they have been built in this Indo-Gothic style. And these were built during British times, not only in Mumbai, but even when you visit Calcutta, when you go to Kolkata, you will find that some of the official buildings which were there in Kolkata also have been have been developed during during the British times, and it represents the Indo-Gothic style. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Terminus, which is now World Heritage Site, is also built in this particular style. So Indo-Gothic architecture or Indo-Gothic style, there can be a question on this, an extra question you can learn. Write a note on Indo-Gothic style. So there are only 4 points here that it has been developed during the British times. Many churches, buildings, government offices, railway stations have all been built in this style. And the example of it is Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Terminus, which is now a World Heritage Site. The next point in this chapter is tradition of classical performing arts. Classical performing arts, performing all the style you have learned about the visual arts, right? Now let's come to the performing arts. This is the next classification. And in performing arts, you have what you call as the 9 moods. Performing arts include dance, drama, theater. All this will be included in performing arts, drama, dance. Now, let us talk about when any performance is put up, when you're acting or when you're putting up a dance recital. Music also comes under performing arts. Dance, music, drama, everything comes under performing arts. There are 9 moods which are important while presenting the Indian performing arts. And here again, there is a concept map. These 9 moods are Raudra, that is showing terrible, Shringar, love, Hasya, humor, Veer, that is heroic, Karuna, that is sadness, Bivatsa, that is repulsion or hatred, Bhayanak, that is fearful, Shant, that is peaceful, then Adbhut, that is wondrous, Adbhut, that is wondrous. So these are some of the moods of the which are present in the which are usually put up or portrayed in presenting the Indian performing arts. Let us go back to the textbook now. So just now we have discussed in this video Hematpanthi temples, Islamic architecture, examples of Islamic architecture. Then you have the Indo-Gothic style of architecture built during British times. And then we have the traditions of classical performing arts. Now, performing arts which are there, they have a lot of information, especially about dance, music and theatre. Is put up in the text of Natya Shastra written by Bharat Muni, and it is supposed to be one of the earliest one in discussing music and theatre. So you have Natya Shastra written by Bharat Muni, supposed to be the earliest one discussing music and theatre. Just now we have seen the concept map of the 9 moods or the 9 rasas, supposed to be fundamental in presenting of all the Indian performing arts. Indian people came in contact with several cultural traditions of other nations, and Indian culture has always been one which has been evolved, which has evolved over a period of time. So we have always given to the others who have invaded us and taken a lot of good points from the other cultures. So therefore, there is always a mixing or a blending of different streams in presenting of Indian performing arts, thus making it rich or enriching it over a period of time. So as a result, many styles of presenting classical, vocal music, instrumental music, and dance came into existence. So various schools preserving these styles were also created. Just as in temple architecture, you have different styles. Similarly, when it comes to performing arts like dance, music, instrumental music, vocal music, all this also there were various schools that evolved over a period of time. There is a concept map here, children. There are 2 main branches of Indian classical music. 2 main branches of Indian classical music. You have the Hindustani and the Carnatic music, the 2 main divisions of Indian classical music. There are 2 forms. Again, it has 2 subdivisions, namely the classical, that is Shastriya, and semi-classical, that is Upashastriya. Semi-classical has included many styles of folk music. So broad classification is Hindustani music, 2 types of classical music, Hindustani music and Carnatic music. There are 2 forms to it, classical Shastriya and semi-classical Upashastriya. Both of them, both Hindustani as well as Carnatic have these divisions, okay? Semi-classical has included many styles of folk music. What exactly do you mean by folk music? Folk music is just as you have folk dance. You have folk music where people or general public, when they spontaneously or when there is naturally uh, uh, when there is a depiction of any particular type of art, it will be called as folk. That means people have naturally or spontaneously, people have put up this. There is no kind of any special training required when it comes to folk music. So many semi-classical music has been included. Many styles of folk music is included in semi-classical type. A beautiful blend of all the 3 forms of music, vocal and instrumental, and dance form can be seen in various Indian classical dance forms. Now in India, we are very proud to say that every part of India has a different dance form. And here there is a match the column coming up, children. Kathak of North India, Lavani of Maharashtra, Odissi dance form of Odisha, Bharatnatyam of Tamil Nadu, Kathakali and Mohiniyattam of Kerala. So I want you to take special note of this. 4 to 5 dance forms: Kathak of North India, Lavani of Maharashtra, Odissi of Odisha, Bharatnatyam of Tamil Nadu, and Kathakali and Mohiniyattam of Kerala. Now, when you talk about music, when you talk about music, again there is a very beautiful um, point mentioned here. The ruler of Bijapur, Ibrahim Adil Shah II, wrote a text in Persian language entitled Kitab e Navras. This text is about Indian classical music. Although many of these rulers of the Muslim sultanates came here, settled down, and they conquered different parts of India, you will find that there has been a lot of cultural exchange here, and that has covered even Indian classical music. Various verses which were sung in the Drupad style in this particular text, and it enables the audience to enjoy and experience the joy of excellent poetry. Dr. Arun Prabhuni has edited this text in Marathi, and translation of one of the verse printed in the cover of this text reads as follows: O Mother Saraswati, Saraswati is a goddess of all kinds of learning, arts, crafts. You are the divine light in the world, and you are complete with all your qualities. If Ibrahim receives your grace, the poetry of the Navras will become eternal. So, therefore, music, children, knows no boundaries of religion, caste. Good music can be enjoyed by everybody. So, even age doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter. Even if you don't understand the language, sometimes some music is so soul stirring that you want to listen to it and you derive a lot of joy from it. In India, during the post-independence period, various festivals of music and dance have been organized, especially to make it reachable or accessible to the common people. Many Indians attend these festivals, and foreigners also come to India to attend these festivals. The Savai Gandharva Festival of Pune is a famous one. I'll try to get you a video of this if possible, but we'll do that at a later date. But this is again for fill in the blank, you can take up this point. Savai Gandharva Festival of Pune is a very famous festival of, it's included in the festival of music. We can see that there is an inclination towards experimenting and creating fusion of various music styles. Now you have all this, it's a time for remix, right? So you'll find that many a times Western and the semi-classical, classical songs are taken from classical music, and then a Western touch is added to it. And so therefore your various music styles have come. Sometimes it is better than even the original composition. Okay, so experimentation and creating fusion in music has always been there, and as a result what has happened is many a times there were limitations of imposed by a traditional style or school. So when it comes to a particular gharana, a particular style was followed, but then when people started experimenting and creating fusion, it has led to new creations. Pandit Uday Shankar. Again, I want you to just take note of this name. Pandit Uday Shankar is a prominent name among such artists who created a new style. And he has successfully created a fusion of Indian classical dance and European opera. He included various folk dances in his style, and the scope of presenting Indian performing arts seems to be constantly expanding. When experimentation is carried out and there is blending, automatically what happens is the scope of that particular performing arts expands. So therefore this same phenomena is apparent or is observed even in the field of Indian visual arts. What is the need to actually go through or have a lesson in history related to art and Indian arts? Why is it very important for a student of standard 10 to know about these arts? Because when we learn about this art, it is not just for the sake of getting knowledge, but this knowledge, what is gathered, can become a profession. So, uh, what are the various professional opportunities that a student of history can have if one has good knowledge about art history. Art history is an independent branch of knowledge, and various opportunities of research are available in this field. So, in this particular part of professional opportunities in the field of art has been a March 2020 history question. Okay, it is the board question. This particular question has come up in the board paper this time. Art historians can work in the field of journalism. Sometimes on a particular day, and it is very significant, there is an event that has taken place on that day. If the journalist is aware of that event, a journalist who is an art historian can write in details, do research, write in details about that particular event. So, therefore, art historians can work in the field of journalism. Art market is an independent field. It calls for a special expertise. Expert knowledge is required to actually judge the value of an art object and ensure that it is genuine. Because there are so many fake objects are available. Even paintings, some may be genuine, some may be just a copy of that painting. Okay, so whether it is a genuine piece of art, archaeologically, whether it is something which is really having that much of value, what is its value? Only an art expert who has a deep understanding of art history will be able to judge. So therefore, an individual can become an expert in this particular field, always can enter into this profession where you can. And so therefore such people who know the value of art object, who are able to ensure that it is genuine and not fake, they get jobs in museums, and archaeological department employs such people. Okay, heritage management and cultural tourism are recently developed fields. What is heritage management? UNESCO has declared many of the ancient monuments come up under heritage sites. And so, therefore, a lot of personnel are required in order to work with a team which comes from UNESCO to inspect and to repair, to restore some part of the monument. So, and even for cultural tourism, when people from outside come as guides, they have to work. So students of art can find many professional opportunities. They can work in museums, archives management, library science, information technology, and archaeological research. Indology again is another important field in this regard. Let us talk about applied art. Now here there is one question. These 3 points get covered only for art. Professional opportunities in the field of art. Now let us talk about professional opportunities in the field of applied art. What is applied art? When the knowledge of a particular thing is actually used in a certain way, then it becomes applied art. The visual and performing arts are primarily looked upon as a means of entertaining of people. When a particular person puts up a dance recital or a musical concert, it is generally for entertaining people. So applied art, person can be a good musician, instrumentalist. So it becomes a means for entertaining the people. An artist performs primarily for this purpose. However, there is scope to combine an artistic creation with utility value to make it economically viable. Thus, an artistic creation with a utilitarian purpose is called applied art. When it has got further a little more utility, entertainment is one such utilitarian factor, but there are several other ways also where art can be applied. For example, in industry and advertisement field, interior designing, production of ornamental object, art design of stage backdrops. Supposing a particular um, theater play is put up and it is related to one particular king of a particular time period, then the type of dress that the kings used to wear, the ornaments that they used to use, the weaponry that was there of that time. If an artist is aware, for example, if you have seen if the film Manikarnika, where Rani of Jhansi is depicted, there, or Bajirao Mastani or Tanaji, all these historical movies, if you look into the backdrop or the stage, that is the settings, okay, you will find that a historian definitely, his a historian's help will definitely be taken by the film director to prepare the settings. Art direction for films art direction for films, television, then creating attractive layouts for books, magazines. For example, even your textbooks, the front cover page and the back page, which is there, attractive layouts for textbooks, magazines, calligraphy, writing in a certain, in a beautiful handwriting, producing of greeting cards, invitation cards, customized stationery, gift objects. All this comes up under the field of applied arts because drawing, painting, sculpture, okay, theater, drama, dance, everything gets included in the word art. So therefore, how it is applied in different fields in the day-to-day life, when it talks about production of of various things, okay, that is what we are talking about, where that's what we are discussing here: art, applied art, and professional opportunities. Field of architecture, photography is also a part of applied arts. Nowadays, you have still an animated graphics created with the help of computers and are used for various purposes. The best example of it is Bahubali. If you have seen that film, you know that how computer graphic, the palace, the elephant, so many other most of the settings and all, the photography settings, even the various animals, they have been animated graphics, has become very, very important. And animation is a very good field all by itself. This is also applied art. Again, ornaments, artistic creation of metals, earthen pots with colorful designs, objects made from cane, bamboo. You have different exhibitions which are put up, and you have different kinds of exhibits that are presented there. That these are very, very costly and expensive, and they project or portray the it comes under modern art. When it comes under modern art, they become very expensive, and they are used for decorations. And these are generally purchased by the so-called rich people in order to decorate their homes. Beautiful glass objects, attractive textiles, and clothing all can be listed under applied arts. Every field mentioned above requires a detailed planning and meticulous management at every stage of production. So, see, once you want to become a thorough professional, you need a lot of knowledge. You have to become an expert in that field. Only then you will be employed. It is essential to employ train trained and skilled individuals at every stage. So when you become an expert, and there are several courses which are actually available for students of history to pursue each of these uh, professional professions. So some of the production process of artistic objects have a history of certain traditions, and development of each productive process has its own history. Hence, the syllabi of training courses of art design include the history of various industrial and cultural traditions. Now, when you talk about various institutions which are there in India, which offer technical and occupational training, you have one very significant institution, that is the National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad. Gujarat is a world famous institute, world renowned institute, famous institute. This institute, this institute has produced an online course since 2015. So you can apply online, and you can study and be a part of, be a student of this particular institute. Okay. So in this lesson, we have covered all the points. We come to the end of this lesson, children. And I will be forwarding the notes of this particular lesson also as a separate PDF. I'll be sharing the notes with you as a separate PDF. So what I want you to do is, from the notes, most of the points are there included as they are included in the textbook. But some points are the sentences are very long. So I have actually simplified these answers to a great extent. And you can copy the notes and start studying. There are many students who have not been very active on this WhatsApp group, and they have not been viewing the videos. Now, if you know any of your friends who have not been taking this seriously, kindly inform them that once the school reopens for the students, then we will be immediately having some assessments related to the topics which we have covered during the online, when the online teaching has when online teaching has taken place. Okay, so this fourth chapter, we have come to an end of the fourth chapter. 4 to 8 chapter the weightage is more. That is why I have not taken up the first, second, and third chapter. We directly started with fourth chapter. Next time we will be covering up either the seventh chapter or the sixth chapter. So you study the fourth chapter thoroughly well, complete all the points, and in case you have any doubts or you have not understood any part of this particular lesson, you can put up a message in the group, the history group, and let me know about it. So I will try to help you out, or once the school reopens, that particular part will be discussed again. Thank you, children. Have a good day. Stay home, stay safe, but do not waste your time. Utilize your time well, and keep studying, because well begun is half done. Okay, so if you start off well and keep revising, you will be well equipped or better prepared for to appear for your assessments once the school reopens. Thank you, children. Goodbye.